Hi, everyone, and welcome to Beyond the Surface. I am thrilled to have Gavin back with us again today. So, Gavin, can you please introduce yourself briefly? And we have an important subject to talk about.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Dr. Gavin McGregor Skinner. I'm a senior director at ISSA. I work with Linda in helping you clean for health and safety.
Awesome. Thanks, Gavin. So, we all have the experience of working in healthcare facilities. We understand what many of the issues are and the challenges and the struggles that our healthcare professionals go through to actually create a safe environment for us to be cared for. And unfortunately, you have recently been a patient in a healthcare facility. And I've read other stories about doctors all of a sudden becoming a patient. And, it's a very different experience to be in bed being cared for than being in a hospital and helping support patient safety. Share with us your experience.
Yeah, thanks, Linda. Yeah, so I recently had 14 hours in a bed, stuck in a hallway in the emergency department of a hospital. And I came in by ambulance. I was put on a bed and there was not enough rooms available. Or again, my condition wasn't as serious as others. So I was able to lie in that bed, sit on that bed in the hallway across from the nursing station. So, it was, but I was there for 14 hours. And during that time, as I was getting the medical care that I needed, I was able to sit and just watch and observe.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because number one, they're not expecting you and you may not have worked in that hospital previously, so they don't know who you are. And as a patient, you're concerned about your well-being, but at the same time, you are observing things that may be of concern that you could help them with. Um, and so tell us some of the things that you observed.
Yeah, it's interesting because this wasn't like a Friday night or a Saturday night. This was a Sunday. I was in the emergency department for 14 hours on a Sunday, and they were busy. Emergency departments are always busy. Lots of people, lots of patients, lots of emergency people coming in, ambulance people, police officers coming in. And so there was a big movement of people. And you and I both know when people move in and out of buildings, there's where your first risk is for the movement of germs that cause infection.
Mhm.
And I was able to sit on my bed as I was being looked after, thinking, in the 14 hours, how often are they going to clean the floor? How often? I didn't expect them to clean my bed because I'm sitting there because I was receiving treatment. But how long does it take them to clean the bed where that person just came in? And I could see everything. It's like there's no privacy there. How long does it take to clean that? Do they clean the nursing station? Oh, how many toilets are there? Oh, there's two, male and female. How often do they get cleaned? And I sat there, and it was just a really interesting learning experience for that 14 hours of seeing things happen in an emergency department on a Sunday going, wow. And it was a big wow in the way that they were cleaning and disinfecting for infection prevention and control, but and more importantly, how often they were either doing it or not doing it.
Well, and in addition to that, on a Sunday, it quote unquote is limited staff. So they don't have your typical teams there. Although at times you have the same issues that you would have on any other day. And you and I often are advocates for environmental services professionals um, being risen to a level of patient safety professional, let's put it that way, because they're key. And oftentimes they're the first ones that will get cut from staff or they won't get scheduled for staff. And all of the other professionals being nursing staff, they have responsibility for those patient cares, and patient care comes first. And so you were seeing that firsthand, literally, where we needed to treat the patients, we need to move them in and out throughout the hospital. There are regulatory requirements about the time from the patient walks through the ED door or comes in via ambulance and getting admitted, treated, triaged, etc. So there's a lot of things that are happening in a live environment that people typically are really unaware of, that we are very aware of because we work with people in this situation. And I it for a patient, it's interesting because we can't help but notice. I mean, we we can't help but notice how many bathrooms they have and how often they're cleaning the floor, because those are the things we train about, right? So, it people are like, I don't even think about those things, but they're critical pieces to patient safety and creating a clean and safe environment. And when it comes to being a patient, it for us, it's a different experience just because we are more aware of things. I know I was a patient many, many years ago. I was in a holding area before they were going to do a procedure. And I had a friend with me, and I looked down at the floor and I was looking at the wall and I was working at another surface. And I finally looked up at her and I said, oh my God, I just know too much. It's like I can't just relax in a healthcare setting. And so oftentimes it can be difficult. But this brings up an interesting piece to the puzzle. Is I often get calls from people that say, how do I protect my loved ones, or how do I protect a family member? I was a patient advocate for one person, and she had surgery. I was in that room in the mornings from 7:30 in the morning until 11 o'clock at night. So through several shifts of professionals. And I just watched behavior. What was the natural behavior of these professionals as they came in to do patient care? And I eventually did go to the patient safety and quality professional within that facility and told her of several of the things that I had observed, explained who I was, told her what I observed, and things changed then for that patient in the way that she was cared for. And it was I don't even know how to describe it. It was a shocking experience just because I knew and understood that what you can't see is what you need to be protected against. But it was also somewhat comforting because the patient was definitely top of mind. So it's that hidden component that nobody knew about that was creating patient risk. And I just want to give someone a plug. Um, there's an author, her name is Robin Shapiro. She's a patient safety advocate, and she's written a book called The Secret Language of Healthcare: How to Ask for the Care That You Deserve. And this book is written with its little vignettes of stories of people and what you can do. And I actually have a chapter in the book where I talk about cleaning surfaces and what you as family members can do to help make sure that the surfaces are clean and address some of the hidden pieces to this. But Gavin, what did you ultimately do? Because you observed some behavior that was concerning, that you knew could be an issue. And in our previous show, we talked a lot about oh my God, why are you here? Because they're doing something wrong. And in reality, they're not doing anything wrong. It's just what you're observing that you could tell them that this could be better. So tell me a little bit about what you ended up doing.
Oh, I think it's so important what you've outlined here, Linda. It's people. We work with people. So we could have the best cleaning products, the best disinfectants, the best cleaning tools and equipment and processes, but it doesn't work unless you have the right people. And so what I learned for 14 hours sitting on a bed across from the nursing station in the emergency department, there were shifts. The people came on. Some of these people were only there on weekends. We're the weekend staff. And I said, well, when do you get trained? Oh, we haven't done training for months. Oh, well, where do you wash your hands? Well, there's no soap and water available, so it's all hand sanitizer, alcohol-based hand sanitizer. And I watched a couple of the nurses and the interns and the all the different doctors that came to see me, and I watched them sort of do that 2 to 3 second quick alcohol, and I thought, oh, if only I had my ATP meter, I could use that right now. But I didn't say anything. But and I thought, gosh, that was a 3 second alcohol hand sanitizer rub, and then you're coming over to touch me after you've been that person over there who I saw bodily fluids.
Yeah.
And so I saw a lot of we had a lot of conversations along what training do they do for infection prevention. We had a lot of conversations about how much do you know about the cleaning product. We saw a lot. I saw a lot of use of the one-time use wipes.
Yeah.
So right next to my bed was a big container of one-time use wipes that a lot of the hospital staff would come up and use before they touched me or put another needle in me or whatever they had to put inside me. They would use that. And I thought, oh, how effective is that? And
Yeah.
and so that got me. And then I saw a lot of spill cleanup. So I saw a lot of vomit, diarrhea, and blood, and people cleaned that up really well. But outside of that perimeter of where the spill occurred, there was virtually little or no cleaning of the floor in the 14 hours I was there. And over 14 hours, I was really busting to go to the toilet, but I hadn't seen anyone go in and clean the toilet for like hours. And I thought, do I go in and hold my breath when I flush? What do I do? Because no one's gone in to clean that toilet. And there's so many people coming in and out of the ER the whole time, the emergency department, since I've been there and used that toilet, that I've got to go. So that really caused a lot of anxiety. People around the nursing station, again, how often did they clean that area? It didn't happen very often. And just I understand people were busy, but I couldn't see anyone in that whole emergency department over that 14-hour period that was responsible, or more importantly, a supervisor that was supervising cleaning and disinfection. I couldn't see it. And my belief is that, when you're in an environment like that, it's everyone's responsibility to keep it healthy and safe. And that's where cleaning and disinfection comes into it. But it seemed to me to be so random, and the frequency of what I thought should be cleaned was very low, very minimal. The shift changed about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I went, is that shift before they change going to clean all the surfaces I would consider high risk for contamination and infection before the next shift comes on at 3 o'clock? And it didn't happen. And then later that night, another shift came on for the nighttime shift. I thought, are they going to do, before we hand over, we've handed over the emergency department in a way that is healthy and safe because we've cleaned like this. And that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of things there that I learned. I saw things being done, but there were areas where I thought, well, why isn't that being done? Why is it cost? Is it time? Is it lack of awareness, lack of training? And I didn't have the answers to that, but the observation showed a lot of massive gap, just huge gaps when you put it in context for infection prevention and control.
Exactly. It's interesting. One of the programs that we're developing is a training program for perioperative, and ISSA and the Institute always bring in industry experts as we develop these training courses, because everybody comes to the table with different experience and knowledge. One of the first things that group said to us, and so let me just tell you who's on that group. We've got the director of infection prevention for the OR. We have got a CRNA, so she puts people to sleep, so she observes a lot. A director of nursing, a head of environmental services professionals. And one of the things they all almost chimed in together and said was, we need a basic training course for everyone so they understand who's responsible for what, and who, so that everybody has the same training. So there's a baseline of training, but then each one breaks into other areas because they're responsible for, medical devices, or the anesthesiologist is, their equipment, etc. And And so that's one of the things that we're working on is that foundational training and then branching off into the areas of expertise. But I was shocked, as were you, it sounds like, that there was no foundational training and that no one had the same educational understanding of the unseen, and the potential risks for not cleaning and disinfecting. And I have pictures in some of my presentations of devices that have blood splatter on them, that are, rusty, etc. And microbes they move. And what they do is inherently, they will seek out a location to attach and form biofilm. So by not cleaning frequently, you've just added to the problem.
Yeah, it's a good point, Linda. When I was, helping hospitals for Ebola patients back in 2014, 2015, and I put this on my resume, I was the checklist guy.
Yeah.
I don't know whether being the checklist guy will ever advance my career, but I was the checklist guy that stood there and watched for breaches of biosafety, biosecurity,
Yeah.
and problems and fixed them. And so I was there with the checklist. I didn't see that in the emergency department. I didn't see anyone who was fulfilling that role of the checklist person and ensuring that certain equipment and certain surfaces were cleaned frequently and properly. But one other thing that really stood out to me on the wall as you came into the door into the emergency department was a wall full of glove boxes, cardboard boxes of gloves. These are all nitrile gloves, small, medium, and large. And I don't want to get anyone in trouble, but again, when police officers and others came in, they mustn't have the money to buy them because they took a lot of those gloves and put them in their pockets as they walked out. So I saw that. But
Yeah.
more importantly, the hospital staff had to go on a vertical surface, pull out the gloves out of a cardboard box on a vertical surface. And when you pull out a glove, a nitrile glove, not one comes out, but others come out and they fell on the floor. And what the staff did was pick them off the floor and stuff them back in the box.
Yeah.
And I went, not touching my body with that
Yeah.
glove. And I really was really very, that glove, I'm sitting here all for 14 hours and I've seen a number of gloves throughout that 14 hours come out of those boxes because people pull them out and they just come out. That's the way it's and fall on the floor and then got stuffed back in. And now you're going to come over and do a procedure on me. And that I was worried by that. Oh no, we used alcohol-based hand sanitizer on the gloves. I went, that doesn't give me any confidence either. So even that, I was sitting there going, there must be a better way to distribute the gloves. And I haven't seen that. And it was like, hang on, is that in every emergency department in the country that they have this vertical wall of cardboard boxes of gloves? And if I hadn't seen it happen, I wouldn't have even been raising it as an issue. But I
Yeah.
saw it happen over and over again. And then sometimes they would pull out the gloves. I'm not ready to put on the gloves, so they'd stuck them in a pocket in their scrubs. Now, you and I both know that scrubs can play a very significant role in infection transmission, but we saw that all the time. Everyone wears their stethoscope around their neck. Did I see anyone clean the stethoscope? No, I didn't. Ever, never. So there was just it's not hard. It's not complicated. It's just a way of creating that culture of health and safety in a way that people feel acknowledged and rewarded, going, and I can get it. The gloves fall on the ground. You don't want to waste money, so you stuff them back in. But that doesn't help prevent infections. It
Right.
doesn't create a safe and healthy emergency room. But that's what was happening. And so when you and I go and visit these facilities officially, we don't see that.
Right. Right. And unfortunately, we at times end up in those facilities not as the healthcare professional, more as the patient. So, um, here's
I
a
was not a good patient. Let me just tell you right now. I was not. I was there for about 5 hours, and then I think my wife thought I was lonely, so she turned up to keep me company after 5 hours, and I was really bored by then. And I stayed another 9 hours after that. I was not a good patient, but I did have a lot of conversation with people,
yeah,
and I think they respected that. I know at one stage, one of the nurses came and said, "We just Googled you." And I said, "No, no, no, I'm really here because I'm sick. I need help. So I'm not here as a spy. We just Googled you and saw a YouTube video." I don't know what it was. It's like, no, no, I'm not. I am your friend. It was, we're actually being caught in the act.
Oh
But it was
no.
really important to have those conversations. And then, I know we'll get to, but I did go back. And that was part of this story is I went back afterwards to talk to the staff.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the key. And I've often had people uh, when I was writing this chapter and got involved with this group for a short period of time, there were an awful lot of questions about what are our rights. Can we say, please wash your hands, or can your family member say, look, I just watched you pick that up. Could you please wash your hands beforehand? And the big question is, how do you do that without being Googled, right? And to protect yourself or your family member. And basically, as a patient advocate for this person, that's what I did too, was, I saw enough to be concerned for the patient. And I went to talk to the quality assurance professional at that facility, not to cause problems, but just again, it's more, you know, it's difficult. They are so busy and so focused, and that is not meant to be an excuse, but to realize that one of the things you need to do is be trained that it's just natural instinct to wash your hands with soap and water, or to not use a glove. I mean, there's no 2-second rule in a hospital, when it hits the floor. And so obviously our goal is to develop the training and the support for healthcare facilities to have that become second nature. And one of the things that was fascinating when I was observing all this behavior as an advocate, every single person that walked into that room went over to that hand sanitizer and pumped in. That was a guarantee. And they did the 2 or 3 second, it should have been 20 seconds, 2 or 3 second hand wipe. And then they started touching stuff without realizing that you are recontaminating your hands. And by the time they touched the patient in a situation, I can't even tell you right off the top of my head how many different things I saw them touch before they went to the patient. And this patient happened to have an open wound. And so there was concern of infection. Um, and so it is different. And I commend you for going back. And I love the fact that they Googled you. I think that's just priceless. So they knew what they were dealing with. How does this guy know so much? So, but I guess one of the things I want to encourage is any of our listeners that are confronted with a healthcare situation that, having a not ordering a healthcare professional, but explaining to them, hey, I did see you touch this or whatever. Could you please wash your hands? Just one more time, just so I'm more comfortable. I have not met much resistance when I've asked that, or when I've seen someone else ask it, where someone says, sure, I'd be happy to. And even in a doctor's office, I've seen that as well. So,
And I think this is really important, Linda, because when I went back, I started the conversation with explain to me your culture of safety. And they veered off in a direction where they focused just on patient safety.
uh,
In our hospital, part of our mission statement, our value, the way we do our work is focusing on patient safety first. And I let them talk. And I went, no, I'm talking about a culture of safety. Safety for your patients is critical. It's so important. What about safety for your workers? What about safety, as you correctly said, your equipment? What about safety for the surfaces? What about the safety of the building, both from a biosafety and a biosecurity perspective?
yeah,
And that's where they got engaged, but it's where all these different answers were coming in, firing at me. Went, well, that's not consistent. That's not standardized. That could work, but can you repeat it over and over again? So as we talked about culture safety, and I listened, patient safety was our priority, and we started to get more into the details, because those details do matter, about the culture of safety in the context of the whole built environment, as well as the equipment, as well as the workers, as well as the visitors, the family, as well as the patients, that took us down a completely different direction, a completely different pathway. And that's where it really we really started to get um, some momentum going for continuous improvement.
Yeah.
Was it
Yeah.
an easy conversation? No, it was not, because someone threw in money, return on investment, the economy, how much is that going to cost? Someone else threw in time. Someone talked in, oh, then everyone's got to be trained. Went, well, we're assuming that everyone understands this culture of safety paradigm,
Yeah.
but they don't. And so when we go to implement it, and then what we do, we then measure it. That's where the opportunities were for me to help them on a continuous improvement program. And I think they sort of said they were grateful that I did come back and say, in my 14 hours as a patient, I saw this, and I think we could do these activities, maybe to fill in some gaps and maybe to strengthen some of the weaknesses and the gaps that I saw.
Yep. Exactly. Well, Gavin, this has been a really interesting discussion. I'm so glad.
Don't get sick, Linda. Don't Whatever you do,
I
don't get
I
sick.
know. Everybody I talk to says, I'm never going to a hospital. I'm like, well, you can't help it always. So, um, but just know that ISSA is working on making things better, right? We really want to develop that partnership with our healthcare professionals. It's not a cookie cutter solution, and it really depends upon different situations, but we're definitely there to support and work with all of our partners in healthcare facilities, our manufacturing partners, our disinfection partners, et cetera, to make it safer.
And
So
that's why we stay and do what we do.
that's right. Exactly. Well, Gavin, it's been a pleasure, and I look forward to talking with you again in the future.
Thanks, Linda.
The ISSA healthcare platform has launched. On the website, you will find all kinds of things, blogs, resources, training information, workshops. Stop by our website. It's issa.com/healthcare.